I am live right now, and I'm on with my friend and client Iris. And today we're just going to talk about her experience with eating foods where the calorie density is low. Iris, tell us a little bit about your experience eating foods where the calorie density is low. What brought you to working with me?
All right, so it has been a journey. I started out the first of, well, actually, let me go back a little further. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in 2013. And at that time, I was put on metformin and just told to, take that medication. And that really didn't help because I was not on a low calorie density diet. So I didn't get good results. And so I've been battling type 2 diabetes for 7 years. And so along this route, I found out in January I had to have surgery, and it was foot surgery. And so I had a healing process to go through, and then of course I had type 2 diabetes too. So when I was in the hospital, I got a chance really to research. I was like, what is the best diet for a diabetic? And with all the research that I did, it said that the low calorie density foods were best. So I had to figure out like what exactly that means, and what am I supposed to do, because I didn't know exactly what that meant.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things that led me to the PCRM site to find a health coach. And so that's how I came in contact with Vince, because he's one of the health coaches.
Yeah. So we started working together, and when we started working, how much insulin were you on?
Okay, I was on 39 units of insulin when we first started working together in April of this year.
Per day?
Per day. Yeah,
Okay.
I was on the mealtime or fast-acting insulin, and then I was on the nighttime or the slow-acting insulin.
And how many units of insulin are you on right now?
I'm on 0 units. I am insulin free. Yay!
And not only are you on no insulin, your glucose is under control with
Very true. Very
insulin.
true.
So what is your fasting glucose levels like in the morning, like on average? Like, no, I know you write everything down, which is wonderful, but
right.
But like, what is your fasting glucose been in the morning with no insulin?
All right. Well, let me just tell you just a little bit background is that my fasting blood glucose has been as high as 427 points in the morning. 427 points.
Wow.
So that is, really unhealthy and really unsafe. And so I really had to get wise about what I was doing and how I approached solving my health problems. So I can say now my fasting blood glucose in the mornings right now range anywhere from 70 to 120. That's the range with no insulin. And what is really amazing is, of course, the low calorie density foods really helped me, and exercise helped me, but just light exercise. I mean, when I first met Vince, he said, you can do 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes in the evening. So that was doable for me. And so what I have found that is with exercise, I now without the insulin, my blood glucose is better controlled. It actually goes down after I do just moderate exercise, of course, with the low calorie density foods.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. No, you're not on any insulin and your glucose is under control, which means that you have reversed your type 2 diabetes to the point where you're not on any kind of medication and your glucose is under control.
Absolutely. I'm ecstatic. I will say this also, my A1C at the beginning of the year, it was 13.5.
Wow.
13.5.
Wow.
Just way out of control.
The beginning of this year.
Yes, beginning of this year, 2020.
Wow.
While I was in the hospital, it was 13.5. So now, as of I would say mid-September,
Yeah.
my blood sugar is 7.9.
Uh-huh.
So that is like a dramatic decrease.
And that's going to keep coming down because I know that mid-September you were still on some insulin in mid-September, and your fasting glucose has continued to drop.
Yes.
So as your fasting glucose has continued to drop, the doctors basically took you completely off of insulin. And since A1C is an average of your fasting glucose over the last 3 months, you still have, back in September, you still had 3 months before was still affecting what that A1C was. You see, you didn't get taken off of your insulin until a couple of weeks ago. So that meant your fasting glucose kept getting better and better and better. So your A1C is going to catch up. It's going to catch up. See, mid-September, you didn't have the full effect of your better performing insulin utilization at that time. But today, you see, the difference is fasting glucose is a snapshot right now, and A1C is an average over 3 months.
Right.
So your snapshot right now says you don't need insulin, but your A1C is over the last 3 months, so it hasn't caught up yet. So a couple of months from now, then you will have had 3 full months of fasting insulin being, at around 100 or less. And so the A1C is going to keep on dropping over the next couple of months.
Okay, interesting. I didn't know that specifically. A question that I have for you is, when you first started coaching me, I was so concerned with my blood sugar, my blood glucose going high. Uh-huh. And I didn't eat fruits. I was afraid because I just had that effect that my blood glucose rose with that. And I didn't really understand what you were saying. I mean, you coached me in the right way, but the difference between understanding how blood sugar or blood glucose compared to insulin resistance, which I didn't really know that's what it was. So I was wondering if you could clarify that so I can just get it sealed in.
So
my head.
I'll tell you, that is one of the trickiest things to explain. And while doctors know way more than I do, I'm not a doctor. Doctors understand mechanisms and biochemistry more than I'll ever understand it. But that said, most doctors don't try to reverse type 2 diabetes. If you have type 2 diabetes, the doctor's objective, And you can ask any doctor, their objective is to manage your diabetes, not to reverse it. And the way to manage it is the first level they're going to do, they're going to put you on metformin and they're going to tell you to watch your carbs. And when you do those two things, you can manage your glucose levels. You can manage it. You'll never reverse it like you are right now. No insulin, no metformin, but control glucose levels. That will never happen if you follow the doctor's strict advice. Now, anybody listening to me now, listen, I'm not giving medical advice. I can recommend some doctors that will tell you the right way. But what I'm saying is doctors don't try to reverse it. They just try to manage it. The only way to reverse diabetes is to look at the cure. You see, most people, if you eat a banana or you eat a potato and your glucose pops up, naturally you think, oh, stop eating bananas, stop eating potatoes. That makes my glucose go up.
Right.
And that part is true. And it's just so logical. So okay, just stop eating the bananas, stop eating potatoes, right? Stop eating watermelon, stop eating oranges and apples because it makes my glucose go up, right?
Yes.
And that's like the logical thing. But what that does not take into consideration is why did it go up in the first place? And the reason why it went up is because you have insulin resistance. You see, we know that your pancreas is making insulin. And the pancreas's job is to produce insulin. And insulin's job is to say, hey, there's glucose in the bloodstream. We really want that glucose in the muscle cells. Because glucose is like fuel that needs to get into the muscle cells to give us energy. But in order for it to be the fuel to give us energy, the glucose has to get from the bloodstream into the muscle cells. That's the trick. And that's insulin's job. Insulin's job is like the key that opens the door and it unlocks it and it opens it up and says, okay, glucose, come on in. But for the type 2 diabetic, the key doesn't unlock the door. And so your pancreas keeps making more insulin and it's trying to unlock the door to open it up to say, glucose, get from the bloodstream and get into the muscle cells. But it doesn't let it in. That's what insulin resistance is. And so then why is it that your pancreas is making insulin, but the key doesn't open up the door? The reason why is because there's saturated fat in the muscle cell. And that clogs up the whole system. So the way to reverse that is to stop eating meat, cheese, fish, dairy, eggs, and over time, that saturated fat will get drained out of the muscle cells. Now, when your pancreas makes insulin, the key will open the door and unlock it. It'll open up and it'll say, hey, glucose, get from the bloodstream, jump on into the muscle cell. And it's like, okay, we can do it. Because there's no longer any saturated fat inside the muscle cell. The problem is this: saturated fat gets into the muscle cell very easily. Saturated fat does not require anything for it to get from the bloodstream into the muscle cell. That happens easily.
Oh.
But to get insulin, to get glucose into the muscle cell, that requires insulin. It requires the hormone to make that happen. Saturated fat doesn't need that. It can just get absorbed through the cells and it gets in there fat. So saturated fat can get inside the muscle cells easier and faster than glucose can. That's the problem. So the only way to reverse diabetes is to stop eating meat, fish, cheese, dairy, eggs, and foods with saturated fat. And over time that can drain out. That's what happened to you. That fat drained out of the cells, and then once that's drained out, now when your pancreas makes insulin is the key that opens the door, and then once it's unlocked and open, now glucose says, oh, thank you, I've been trying to get inside, but it was too much saturated fat in there and I couldn't get inside. Now that you got the saturated fat drained out, I'm so happy to get from the bloodstream into the muscle cells. And as soon as the glucose is moving from the bloodstream into the muscle cells, now you're when you prick your finger and you measure your glucose in the bloodstream, it's low. Why? Because it's not in the blood anymore. It's gotten into the muscle cells, and that's where we want it to be.
You know, what's so amazing is that you say you're not a doctor, but I have never had any medical professional explain that to me in that way, because I always thought diabetes was a function of blood sugars, but it's not just the blood sugar. So that's what I appreciate about your coaching. And then also, I thought I was doing good by having olive oil and coconut oil and only using those type oils. But, and I ate skinny popcorn, you know, I thought that was so great. But I mean, you busted me one day when I said, yeah, I eat popcorn. That's my favorite snack. I love skinny popcorn. And then come to find out it had oil in it, has sunflower oil in it. And I also want you to explain, if you would, the negative effects of having oil in the diet of someone that's trying to be on a low calorie density program and lose weight.
So a couple things. First is from the standpoint of having diabetes. Of course, we already kind of explained that the main trick to reverse your diabetes is to get that fat out of the muscle cells that then will allow glucose to get into the muscle cells. So oil is part of the fat. Oil is 100% fat. So just like you are getting that saturated fat from meat, fish, cheese, dairy, eggs, when you eat oil, you see the difference between corn oil or olive oil and corn and olives is when you eat corn and when you eat olives, there's fat in there, there's oil in there, but your body has to extract it. But when you just eat the oil itself, it's already pulled out. So it's very easy for that oil then to get into the bloodstream and to get into the muscle cells, because you've done all the work. We've done all the work by pulling the fat out. If you have corn, which oil is in there, that's where corn oil comes from. If you have olives, oil is in there, that's where olive oil comes from. When you eat that, your body has to pull the fat out. And so you're not gonna have nearly as much. And since the body has to separate it, you don't have this rush of oil or fat into the body. And so then that then prevents that oil from getting into the muscle cells. And so then you don't have insulin resistance. So if you just eat the corn, eat the olives, not the corn oil, not the olive oil, then that allows your body to be in a better place to not have insulin resistance. Now, from the standpoint of weight loss, now that is another area that I am going to share my screen, and I want you to see why that is so important. So can you see my screen?
I can see your screen, yes.
Okay, so here is a chart of foods based on calorie density. And so the lowest calorie dense foods are, of course, water has 0 calories, right? Then vegetables, then fruits, then whole grains and oats and like rice, then beans and lentils. And then as we keep moving up the calorie density to chicken, to breads, to dried fruit. Big difference between dried fruit and regular fruit, because when you take the water out, like grapes, the calorie density I think is like 200. But then if you take the water out, it jumps up to 1,300. That's a big, big difference.
Wow.
Sugar, cheese, you see the calorie density keeps going up and up. Junk foods like potato chips and French fries and candy bars. And then the biggest of them all, oil. Oil is 100% fat. So if all you do is eat below the red line, you eat as much as you want and you can still lose weight. Because the reason why most weight loss programs fail is because people eat up here and they try to cut back on their quantity size.
Right.
And when you eat up here and cut back on quantity size, your quantity, now you're hungry. And if you're hungry, eventually you're going to eat like crazy.
Right.
Because we're designed to not starve. And so if you allow yourself to be hungry for a long enough period of time, eventually eat like crazy. But if you eat below the red line, you can eat until you get full and you still lose weight. That's the secret to weight loss that you can maintain. And because let me ask you this, have you ever been hungry since you've been on this plan?
I haven't been. That's amazing. I've never been hungry. I mean, even from the start of the program, and I want to also ask you another question, or just emphasize how my the lower calorie density foods really switched for me and had remarkable improvement. But I can honestly say I've never been hungry. And I mean, even now, before, when I was experiencing the high blood sugars, I would get dizzy, I would get weak, I would feel hunger pains before I ate. Now none of that happens. I love my food. I mean, my food tastes so good. But what I wanted to ask you about is, or just bring this back up again, do you remember when I thought I was also doing so great with my smoothies? And then the amount of fat that I was putting in the smoothie, I didn't take into account. And then the how much better chewing my food is better than a smoothie, because I've just kind of always relied on the smoothie for nutrition.
Yeah.
When I first got home from the hospital, I couldn't stand on my feet and cook, and I thought, oh, I could just throw some stuff, fruits and vegetables in the blender. I have a high-powered blender, but I want you to explain the shift that was made with me on the low-calorie density foods from the smoothie, and then me actually chewing my food, and what difference that made with improving my health.
So a lot of things in there. First thing is that your smoothies, you were putting avocados in there, and and so what's really important for somebody who's got type 2 diabetes is to avoid the fats, because it's the fat in the muscle cell that causes the problem. So we got to get that drained out, and the way to get that drained out is no meat, cheese, fish, dairy, eggs, and no oil. And even on plant-based foods, avocados and nuts and seeds are the highest fat content plant-based foods. And so we want to minimize that for someone with type 2 diabetes that's on insulin, that we're trying to get that reversed. And so the first thing that we did was we took that out. And I think the next week after we did that, we noticed your glucose levels start to respond like that next week. And then with regards to when you put food in a blender, when you take fruits and vegetables, and I'm not against smoothies. Smoothies are not bad, but chewing your fruits and vegetables is better. And the reason why it's better, it's healthier, is because the digestive process starts when you chew. Because in our saliva has something called salivary amylase, and that starts to break down the carbohydrates while it's in your mouth. And when you make a smoothie, you gulp it down, you don't chew. So you really bypass the first phase of digestion. The first phase of digestion is chewing. Chewing not only makes the particles smaller so that we can swallow, but it also starts the process of breaking down carbohydrates so that your body can use that form of energy. And so chewing allows time for the salivary amylase to start breaking down those carbohydrates early. And one of the nutrients that we really want is nitric oxide. And so there are nitrate-rich vegetables. And those nitrate-rich vegetables have to be converted from nitrate to nitrite, and then from nitrite to nitric acid. Well, that first step from nitrate to nitrate, that happens in your mouth when you're chewing. And so when you make a smoothie and you bypass that, and
Right.
there is amylase in your stomach as well, because the pancreas makes amylase, it makes pancreatic amylase. But you shorten the residence time, the amount of time that the amylase has to convert the nitrate to nitrite, because the process is supposed to start in your mouth. And so when you make a smoothie and you just gulp it down, you bypass that first step. So you don't get the full benefit of fruits and vegetables when you make a smoothie. So now, I'm not saying never do smoothies. I think smoothies are really healthy, but I don't want smoothies to be your only form of vegetables. I want you to still chew green leafy vegetables. If you want to add a smoothie to that, fine. But I don't want your only source of vegetables to come from a smoothie. It's better than none. It's better than none, because green leafy vegetables are amazing for you. But I love it when you chew it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's been amazing with me chewing my food. Now I have devised, based on your the meal planner. I looked at the meal planner and came up with 16 vegetables that I could put in my salad. I have a huge salad every day, and just the combination of different, a wide variety of vegetables and fruits, well, such as tomatoes, but it's been amazing.
Mm. Well, I am grateful to you for following instructions so well, and I'm so proud of your results. To actually have a client that was on 39 units of insulin per day, and while you were on all that insulin, your glucose was still not in control.
Right.
So you were taking all of that insulin and still had high glucose, high fasting glucose in the morning, and now you're on no insulin.
Right.
And glucose is under control.
Yes, it is really been amazing. And that's a matter of what, 6 months from April until now, maybe going on 7 months. And I'm insulin free, I'm drug free. I am just on top of the world.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. I did, and thank you for doing this Facebook Live with me. I did want the people who follow me to actually see and hear from a client that, you know, there's so many health benefits when you eat foods where the calorie density is low. Weight loss is a big one, because so many people need to lose weight. And of course, I'm having this weight loss challenge where people are eating foods where the calorie density is low. But that's just the beginning, you know, because not only will you lose weight, but we can lower blood pressure, and we can reverse heart disease, and we can prevent you from getting stroke, and we can reverse diabetes, and we can lower cholesterol, and like all of these things, all just from eating foods where the calorie density is low. So there's so many benefits, right? And so weight loss is just one. And you experience weight loss, you experience reversing your diabetes. It's just amazing.
I did. I forgot to mention this. You brought it up, and it reminded me of my cholesterol. At the beginning of this journey, my cholesterol was 200 of the total cholesterol.
Yeah.
Was 230, and now it's 150. So I'm
no medication, right?
No medication. No.
No medication.
Just the low calorie density foods.
See, So now you got your glucose under control, your
Yes.
cholesterol's under control, your blood pressure's under control, your weight is under control.
Yes. Amazing.
You are just showing to the world that how important the power of food really is. Food is what heals you, not medication. Food is what heals you.
Agreed. I agree totally with that.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I thought I was doing good with the oils, the right kind of oils, and I found out that was not good.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. I'm gonna go ahead and sign out. You stay on, Iris, but I'm gonna sign
Okay.
off of Facebook and stop the live stream. Facebook, thanks for watching, and we're gonna go live tomorrow as well. If you want more information on the weight loss challenge, I'll put the link in the comments. Or if you have any questions for me, or you got any questions for Iris, feel free to put questions in the comments, and we'll be sure to get back to you. Thanks a lot, and we will come at you later.